We're good to go.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I am Joe Barnes, co-chair, along with Laura Dorfman of the Community Preservation Committee. This is the CPC meeting of Wednesday, October 11th. First, providing a chairman's update. We have very little to report. This is our first meeting getting into the fall session. We are a 9-member committee. Currently, we have 7 members, and the 7th member is here tonight, Maureen Callahan. Welcome, Maureen.
Thank you.
We're still waiting for 2 more appointments, which will be happening soon, I suspect. Tonight, we will not conduct our meeting in the normal fashion. Observing the guideline in the CPA statute, we will conduct our yearly public hearing. Now, because we do not have any pending applications before us at this time, due to the fact the deadline for applications is November 1st, tonight will allow us to tell you a bit about who we are, as well as what we do. There will also be an opportunity at the end of our presentation to entertain questions and hopefully be able to provide some answers. So I would like to suspend our regular meeting and open the public hearing by first taking a roll call of our members. I will first confirm that all members are present in the room, as well as those attending virtually, and they can hear me. Not hearing otherwise, I suspect they can, right?
Yeah, there's no members attending virtually.
Okay. They're crowding around the table here. That's what the reason is, I guess. I'd like to acknowledge and once again, welcome our new member, Maureen Callahan. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Reg Foster. Here. Dave Hera. Here. Jean McKnight.
Here.
James Rosenbaum. Here. And the chair responds present as well. We also acknowledge the presence of Peter Pingatore, former chair, who will be a resource tonight when we talk about some of the efforts that we have as a committee. I would also acknowledge our very able staff, Cecilia Simchak, who stepped out for a second, but she is here, and Laura Spinney. Welcome. Let's begin with a background and an overview of CPC. Are we able to put up the slide?
Oh.
I'll wait till Cecilia comes back. Thanks, Lauren. That's not the first one, though. Yeah. So the evening looks like this. We've done our welcomes and our introductions, a brief overview of the Community Preservation Act in Needham. And then the 4 areas that we will highlight tonight being the community housing, outdoor recreation, open space, and historic preservation. Now, the CPA Act was legislated in 2000. The act enabled cities and towns to raise money through a real estate surcharge and create a local dedicated fund to do 4 different things: acquire, create, and preserve open space, acquire, create, preserve, and restore historic sites, acquire, create, preserve, and support affordable housing, and acquire, create, preserve, and restore outdoor recreational facilities. Now, as I say, this act was instituted in 2000. In 2003, Massachusetts became involved in 2003. And we are one of 195 Massachusetts communities to have adopted the CPA. A correction, it was made 2004 that we became part of the CPA funding act. It was adopted by town meeting. Money is realized by a 2% surcharge on real estate property taxes, with the exemption of properties with $100,000 taxable value and properties owned or occupied by anyone qualifying for low income or low moderate income senior housing. We also get matching funds. They're not a straight match. They were at one point. As more and more communities come on board, the available funding goes down. So we do get support from the state, not an equal 50-50 basis. The reserve funds for us to spend is set aside for future spending and a minimum of 10% of annual CPA revenues for open space, historic preservation, and community housing. The pie chart shows how it is distributed. There is 51% left for funding that has not been proposed during a particular funding cycle. Of note, Needham CPC increased its community housing reserve allocation to 22%. We're required by law to provide 10%. CPC and the town feel strongly about the need for housing, so we have dedicated 22% to that effort. We also may use up to 5% for administrative expenses. And as I said, the remaining 51% may be used for any allowable projects in any other categories. Our Community Preservation Committee, as I mentioned earlier, is a 9-member volunteer committee. We have members who have been appointed by various commissions or by ruling bodies. We have Dave Hera, as you can see, appointed by the Conservation Commission, Laura Dorfman, a co-chair Historical Commission, Jim Rosenbaum from the Park and Recreation, Gene McKnight, the Planning Board, Reg Foster, Needham Housing Authority. I have been appointed by the Select Board, as has Maureen Callahan for the Select Board as well. Pending town moderator's approval and support, we will have 2 from him coming as well, hopefully before we begin our application process. Our responsibilities are threefold: to assess community preservation needs by soliciting input from boards and commissions and holding an annual public hearing to obtain public input. We would hope to do that tonight for those that are here. Develop and maintain a community preservation plan, which was updated this past May, which establishes the committee's priorities for recommending projects to the town meeting to receive CPA funding. And then to make CPA funding recommendations to the town meeting, which we will do in the spring. This is our schedule. We begin afresh in November with project applications being received. As I said, the deadline is November 1st for applications coming in. We then meet on a regular basis, and it involves project liaisons being assigned, the review of applications to provide whether they're eligible or not, due diligence questions. We will review the projects. We'll consult with the Select Board and the Finance Committee. We'll hold a public hearing once again in the spring prior to town meeting to get community input. The CPC recommends projects to town meeting with the majority vote required. And then town meeting votes on funding CPC articles. The allowable uses of CPA funds, as you can see here, they are for open space, historic, recreation, and housing. And to acquire, create, preserve, and support, they vary. To acquire, yes, we're able to acquire in all 4 categories. For creating, we're able to create the opportunities in open space, recreation, and housing. To preserve in all 4 categories. That is our goal as a preservation committee. We hope to preserve what we have and improve on what we already have. And support, we're able to support the housing effort. We're not able to support open space, historic, or recreation. Over the past well, it's 2004, so over the past 19 years, a considerable amount of funding has been provided for recreation, community housing, historic preservation, and open space. As you can see, 35 million plus with the 2% surcharge, and also matching distributions from the state will take us to about $45 million over the past 19 years. The town has benefited greatly from it. We hope to do the same this year and in coming years. So our CPA plan. Now, communities that adopt the CPA are required to create a community preservation plan to create implementation of the act. That is what I mentioned earlier. We revised that this past May to update it to meet our needs. The plan it describes how the CPA will be administered by the committee in town. It describes CPC goals and factors of consideration. It serves as instructions for applicants seeking project funding. It also provides guidance to the committee in reviewing the applications. And it articulates a common understanding of Needham needs and priorities. By seeking input, by getting feedback, we're able to create what we think is a very valuable set of opportunities for Needham. First is community housing. That particular, we call it bucket that we have funding for. There are a number of things that we have been able to do over the years. Some of the more important, I guess, are more noticeable than others. If I would ask our former chair, Peter Pingatore, to talk a little bit about the community housing bucket that we have been able to use in the past.
Thank you, Joe. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Peter Pingatore. Recently completed two terms plus with CPC, and I'm appearing here at the request of the chair and the committee. So thank you for having me. I'll speak just briefly on community housing. I just want to point out one definition and unpack that, which I think is kind of important. So the preservation, the act itself defines community housing as low and moderate income housing for individuals and families, including low and moderate income senior housing. And in general, this means that CPA funds can only be expended on housing developments that will serve residents who earn less than 100% of the area of median income. So this is a higher threshold than the definition of affordable housing used under Chapter 40B to have units count towards affordable units, which provides us, the CPC, with a little more flexibility in the use of CPA funds in connection with our affordable housing. So just keep that in mind. In connection with our CPA plan, which we worked and amended and reissued in our prior session, we spent a lot of time through the efforts of two particular members on our committee, reworking the community housing section. And what it does is essentially tracks the Needham Housing Plan published in 2022, or as we say in the plan, it informs us. And so what you'll see there is with respect to the priorities of usage for CPC, we look to the Needham's housing plan, and the priorities are as listed there. Households with limited incomes need affordable rental housing. There's gaps in affordability. There's a need for affordable home ownership opportunities, special needs housing, and there's a need for handicapped accessible units and supportive services. So you'll see those in our plan as kind of our priorities. And then following that, we identify some really particular things that we'd like to accomplish. And I'll just note one of them. They're listed in the plan, but one of them is supporting Needham Housing Authority's preservation and redevelopment initiative. And I note there that the CPC has supported this initiative by grants totaling over 1.75 million. I think that there's more. There's another grant, but those are the last two, which were one had to do with redevelopment costs for Linden Chambers, and another had to do with repositioning of seabeds in Cooks Drive. And there will likely be additional grants coming forward as Linda Chambers moves towards construction, or at least there's going to be a request for it, and it seems likely that there's going to be a grant. That's one example of what we can do with CPC funds for community housing, and the second one is up there on our High Rock Homes, which brings me all the way back to when I first was with the Needham Housing Authority itself. Back in 2006 and 7, we received grants totaling over $870,000 in connection with High Rock Homes, which involved replacing 20 small bungalow style homes with a total of 40 duplex townhouses. You'll see them pictured here, and I think everyone by now is familiar with the development. So, and as I said, we welcome further input on priorities for the use of community housing funds in the future.
Thank you, Peter. Recreation, one of the buckets that we're able to draw money from. Jean McKnight, would you talk to that?
I wasn't asked to, I was asked to speak about open space.
I'm sorry, Jim.
Oh, that's okay. Needham CPA plan seeks to preserve, increase, and enhance recreational use of an access of Needham's natural and recreational resources. The one that everybody's gonna know is the Rosemary Recreation Complex. In the funding for feasibility, design, and construction, the CPA portion funded construction of an outdoor recreation pool, an outdoor fitness competitive pool, and a spray park, reconstruction of the driveway and 2 parking lots, renovation of low level of the existing building for the bathhouse and pool functions, and rebuilding of the trailhead to the Rosemary trails.
Now, we have picked out one particular project when we've put this slide presentation together. There are numerous others, and I think most of us are familiar with some of the fields that have been updated, some of the playgrounds that come under that. But we've tried to highlight what we felt would be something that would be probably the most obvious to the community. So the next slide. Open space.
Yes.
Jean, now you. Sorry.
Jean McKnight, and I've been a member of the Community Preservation Committee for about 2 years as an appointee from the Planning Board. And I'm going to talk about open space. That's a very important bucket. The Community Preservation Act requires that 10% of the funds that come into both from the state and from the local tax be preserved, especially for spending on open space. And although I'm going, and as Joe said, although I'm going to focus on just one project, we've had many open space projects, a couple that involved acquisition of small parcels of land, creation of trails, so that there was access to our wonderful open space parcels that we have in our town. And Needham's Community Preservation Act plan seeks to, the Community Preservation Act itself says that these funds can be spent to acquire, create, and preserve open space resources. And our CPA plan and the Community Preservation Act defines open space to include agricultural land. So the project I'm going to be speaking of is an agricultural land project. And our community preservation plan on open space factors for consideration lists projects that protect and maintain the remaining farmland in town. Now, this project is the community farm. And you might say, was that agricultural land? Well, it really is. I mean, it's been used for, at least back, 10, maybe longer years for community farming. However, the soil was never very good. It was a lot of fill soil. So there have been three community preservation appropriations to enhance the agricultural land at the community farm. In 2013, 8,200, in 2020, 6,200. And those involved funding for soil improvements to the Nike site and an expansion of growing beds. But the quality of the soil was always a problem. So the recently funded project in 2022 was $200,000 to create what you see in the photo, and that is growing beds. And the soil that's put in these beds was brought from, a special vendor of this soil that is particularly good for this kind of farming, and will preserve the soil for, year after year, so that the community farming can continue. So the project also included site improvements for improved access, particularly for persons with disabilities, and regrading in general of the site to improve drainage, and construction of a tool shed and installation of water supply access. And some of the beds were raised particularly so that even a person in a wheelchair could engage in the farming using these beds. So it's proved to be a popular project. I understand that Community Farm has had many people seeking, the year, there's a certain reasonable small payment to be able to use the growing beds, and they have had a lot of demand for it. We feel it's a successful project.
Great, thank you, Jean. The next area of note is the historic preservation bucket. And I think there are a number of major projects that will come to mind when we talk about what the CPC has been able to support. We do talk about the resource of historical, cultural, architectural, and archaeological significance. I think what comes to mind, we were able to support that First Baptist Church. We're able to support another church in town, along with Emery Grover. That's another major project that we were involved in. And of note, we have here the town hall renovation, which I think there was some question before it was finally approved, but I don't know of anybody who has not been happy with it since it's been completed. I think it's worthy also to note that this renovation, this support, this project, as it says under the picture here, was the largest single historic preservation project completed of all CPA towns and cities. No one has done more for their town in one particular project than Needham for its renovation of the town hall. We provided funding for feasibility study, design work, renovation, and construction of existing building and adjacent areas as well. 80% of the project was funded by the CPA in combination with through both cash and bonds. So we're very proud of that. I think the town has benefited greatly from that. So those are the areas that we have supported and will continue to support. And if there is another slide, Cecilia, it may be bringing it to the end. So we're saying if more information, we would welcome visitors to come to our meeting. These are the nights that we have scheduled right now. As it gets busier during the December and January, we may be meeting more often, depending on the number of applications that come in. But we value your input, and we would love to have you be part of the decision-making process that we go through each year. Before we go to public, any comments or from the committee? Anything that you'd like to add or comment on? All right, well, this is a public hearing. We have public and we want to hear. So anything from Three members of the public, any questions, comments? As I said, we don't have, I'm sorry, we don't have applications yet, so this is kind of a primer on what we do and how we do it.
Hi, I'm Jim Flanagan. I'm a Needham Town Meeting member in G and live on Webster Street, 863 Webster.
Thank you.
Thank you for all of your efforts and I love all the categories. I'm particularly interested in more affordable housing, more housing choice. So very much support the Needham Housing Authority's PRI objectives. And hope that the CPC supports it as well.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Oscar Mertz, 67 Rhineberry Hillway, town meeting member, precinct I. I was a member of the housing plan and worked was able to put together that housing plan at the end of last year. I thank you all for acknowledging some of those targets, those initiatives for clearly a number of different, as Jim said, we have quite a broad appetite for housing choice. We're experiencing trends of they're moving us away from having enough range of choice. So I am interested in what you said in particular about the fact that you are looking for opportunities to help support multiple ways of the families with children with disabilities are able to help and sit back and needing to find more kinds of housing for them. In addition to what the new housing objectives are, PRI, involved in a lot of the support effort we can give to the residents team on that front. So we're excited for that future. Excited for the planning boards addressing those challenges with the zoning to help that happen. So again, strong supporter of all of the opportunities we can make in towns that create housing.
Great. I think it's fair to say that no topic has been on the table more than housing over the last year. So we feel very strongly, as you do, that the need is very, very clearly there. We're with you.
Thank you for all your work.
There are people in the audience and there's two people with their hands raised.
Okay,
So I will promote one, Ross Donald. I'm promoting you to speak.
could you identify yourself once again and your
Hold on,
address?
Gotta join back in. Okay, there, now he's here.
All right. Welcome, Ross. Could you give us your address, please?
He's muted. Oh, Ross, you're muted. Oh, Ross, there we go.
All right. Yeah, Ross Donald, 25H Chambers Street. I am a resident of public housing in Needham. We just had a presentation from the architects with the updated schematics, I guess, of the Linden Chambers project. And I'm going to be following this. I did some development work when I lived on Mission Hill in Boston. And there I was involved with a CDC, Community Development Corporation, a little different structure, I think. But I've observed that I'm hoping that there'll be some greater opportunities. I think people are interested in new approaches to housing development. And I've observed that, well, I understand that the League of Women Voters is doing a survey of that sort of thing. But Affordable Housing Fund presents a lot of opportunities. Certainly a group like this might be able to fund some other groups or individuals. My main interest right now is to try and help get a tenant organization up and running. We've had them in the past and we expect to have another one in place to sort of occupy a role in the development. There are a lot of talented and experienced people living in public housing, and it's a resource that might be taken advantage of. So we have a 75th anniversary coming up. I believe the party's tomorrow at the golf club. So, well, thanks for the opportunity to speak. Bye.
Thank you, Ross.
Sorry, I forgot how to move them back.
It's the little dots on the right there, yeah.
All right, Paula, I'm gonna promote you.
Great, thank you very much. I'm Paula Dickerman. I live at 20 Burnside Road, and I'm a town meeting member from Precinct J. I just want to very briefly underscore what's already been said. It's not because you need to hear it, but just to hear another voice willing to come to a meeting and speak up in favor of community housing. The slide that you showed about prior distribution of the funds among the 4 buckets showed very clearly that, of course, historically, spending has not been in the community housing bucket. And you've recognized that by upping the amount from 11 to 22%, which makes me very happy. And I'm sure that you'll go through the process and that we have an opportunity to kind of even that out in making even more contributions to support our public housing. So thank you.
Thank you, Paula.
Right, I think those are the only hands raised.
Okay. All right. Anything else from the committee? Anyone else would like to add with any second thoughts from the public? Well, we'll have a better idea in another 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Do we have any idea as to at this stage how many applications in general are coming our way?
I don't have an idea yet.
Okay, right. Well, we're here to take a look at them when they arrive. Anything else from the committee? Thank goodness, we barely took our coats off, and here it is, time to go. We will meet again on November 8th. And hopefully we'll be able to have a productive meeting then. Thank you, public, for coming, and you're welcome to come back. We'd love to have you here again. Okay? Anything else, anyone?
Mr. Chair, I think you formally have to close the public hearing before you call for a motion to adjourn.
Okay, all right, I'll do that. Nothing else to add? Okay, I'd like a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
So moved.
I second.
All in favor? Voice vote? Maureen?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
And the chair votes aye. To close the meeting, to adjourn the meeting, I would entertain a motion as well.
So moved.
So moved, okay,
Second.
second. Maureen?
Aye.
Aye. Jim?
Aye.
Jean?
Aye.
Reg?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your good work. Cecilia and Lauren was very helpful. This meeting is now adjourned.